uh, you're obviously in the crypto game, and I had a lot of interest in crypto about this time last year. So much interest, in fact,
You mean
that
personally or professionally?
personally,
Oh, okay.
yeah, personally, so much in fact, and I had some buddies that got me on it, and I mean it was on. I mean everybody was talking about it, right, a year ago from now, and I was having heated conversations at Thanksgiving dinner and at Christmas dinner, and I was arguing my uncles and my father-in-laws, and well, not my father-in-laws, but in-laws, and guys who've had a lot of experience, and they're telling me that it's going to be a fad and all this stuff. And
What did they have experience in? Finance, money management, economics,
and life,
okay.
and everybody has an opinion.
Everybody
had an opinion on it, and they still do. It's not quite as strong because it's not quite in the media as much as it was.
Right.
But it's fun, and it's. I think there's so many different layers to it. Not only is it a different market, but I think it's a market that is tailored to more the tech community. It's tailored to people who want their money to be unregulated, have a little more freedom. I think that like coolness, kind of mystery aspect of it.
Why should your money be regulated?
That's why I like it. And that was my biggest factor of why I enjoyed it so much, is because if you and I do a simple transaction, a good or a service, I want to pay you without the government going, whoa, we need our piece. And so that still is my biggest thing on it. But I don't know. I mean, kind of tell me how this all started, how you got into it. Well, why don't you first tell me what you do now?
Yeah, right. So I run an investment company that just invests exclusively into crypto coins and tokens. Yeah, blockchain projects and tokens.
Okay.
We don't do seed funding, so like we're not doing Series A, Series B, or any type of debt notes or anything. This is straight U.S. dollar into the decentralized markets.
Okay. And are these for individuals or are these for companies?
Both.
Okay.
So I've got one client right now that's it's a company. The others are all individuals.
Okay.
It's much easier to talk with individuals because they directly control their own purse, whereas a company will usually have to meet with the other firm.
A lot of layers too.
A lot of layers, a lot of decision making, a lot
light.
of interested parties, lots of ins and outs. Absolutely. So
you have a financial advisement background.
Right.
And so you went to University of Mizzou.
Yep.
And what did you study there?
Finance.
Nice.
That's what I went to university to study, was finance and markets and all that kind of thing.
And so you graduated.
Yep, I graduated.
And then what was your next step?
Well, before I even graduated, the reason I went to the university to study this was because back in middle school, and I wish I embraced it more, but when we were in middle school and we're young men, we're boys turning into men.
I'm still a boy.
Right,
Yeah.
I am too sometimes. And you're extremely self-conscious about what's cool and what's not cool.
Right.
I don't even care about it now. I was such a computer geek, and I loved it, but that wasn't the cool thing to be, right? So my friends and I, who were into that kind of thing, we would talk about playing StarCraft or Red Alert, or we talk about how to manipulate the games, create your own maps, get inside, tweak the coding, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, wow. You were deep.
My friend and I would get on do you know what Angelfire was? Angelfire was before MySpace, and you could create your own websites.
I think I remember hearing
and
about
so
that.
a couple of friends and I, we'd create our own websites. So in middle school, basically we had to teach ourselves HTML because that's all you could do. Yeah. Building your computers, breaking them up, going to LAN parties, all of that.
Okay.
So I loved that kind of stuff, but I didn't fully embrace it because I was kind of self-conscious about it. But anyway, in, I don't know, 7th grade, 8th grade, all I remember was it was in middle school. We used to use Alta Vista or Lycos or Ask Jeeves or whatever those junk search engines were at the time. And the librarian came in and said, hey, I want you to go to this website. And you remember how they used to say like HTTP:// it's like, okay, what's the website? Just say it.
You used to write it out on the board.
Yeah, it was Google
chalk.
though. And she said, go to Google basically. I was like, oh, okay. And then like it worked. I was like, oh wow, thank the Lord. This is awesome. Like you're searching and what you're searching for is coming up. And at the same time, since 1992, my dad has been in the world of investments, like stock market stuff, stockbroker work. And at home, he would, be studying for that stuff or teach me about it. And so in middle school and high school, I would save money. I was pretty good at earning and saving money. And so I went to him and said, hey, when Google goes IPO, I think I want to buy some. And I was, I don't know, like 14. So he would have probably had to buy it for me in his name, I think. But anyway, it eventually went IPO.
You knew what IPO was at 14?
Like 14 or, yeah, I was in 8th grade. Right, you're right, yeah. So yeah, I did, from him. Okay. And I was like, hey, if I can ever, I don't know if I knew it was IPO, but I knew if I could ever buy this stock, I want to. Because I knew the tech stuff, and I was always fooling around on the internet anyway, and I knew how freaking frustrating it was to try to navigate the internet. So yeah, I said, hey, if this company Google ever lets you buy their stock, let me know. And I think about a year later, he said, hey, it's going to happen. Do you want to? So I bought Google IPO at like $62 a share. And then like 9th grade me watches it go from 60 to 150 to like 250. I say, buy, sell out, sell, give me my money. I should have just not done it. I would have been retired by now. But anyway, so that's what got me into tech and like watching how tech and whatnot. But then also my dad teaching me the stock market stuff, kind of intersected those two interests. So that's what I went to university for, was more of the stock market investments world while still loving the tech and hanging out in weird, unfrequently traveled corners of the internet. So then after I finished university, okay, so now you're asking how I got to this point. Yeah,
so I mean, definitely your transition, how you went from, because what I know about the financial industry is, it's kind of rock steady in terms of like the process of how you become a successful financial advisor. It's usually the same route.
Yeah, there's two routes. Either you are born into a lot of wealth and your friends, family, and neighbors are extremely wealthy, so they just hand you millions, or you just hustle. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, scoot over this way just a little bit.
Okay, so hit it. My bad.
You're good.
Yeah, so you're right. So I don't know, maybe it's from when I was young, just had somewhat of a distrust of or an annoyance with authority. I understand we need authority here and there, but when I was a senior is when I started reading more like political books or philosophy books like that, and I was thinking like, well, why does the government have to be so big? Why does it have to tell us, why does it have to tell us what we can? Like the seatbelt thing, like that's such a basic example, but if I want to drive around with my seatbelt off or my helmet on my motorcycle off, whose business is it? So yeah, I got in a couple of debates with kids at university, or I mean, professors at university in class, but nothing really crazy. So I finally graduate, and right before I graduate, literally the months leading up to me graduating is when the 08-09 crash happens. Yep. So I finished school in 2009. I think it was 2009. And so this whole thing had just happened. And everything that we just got taught for the last however many years at university, now I'm in the real world, and it's like, well, none of it's applying.
Right.
I thought we lived in free markets where businesses make bad decisions, so they go bankrupt, right? But the exact opposite happened. Where this isn't a Republican Democrat thing. It's just what it is. It all happened under George Bush, and then Obama came in and wrote them a blank check to just bail themselves out, and nobody went to jail. Nobody lost their jobs. A few legislations were passed, but nothing serious. And so immediately, I just started my career, and I'm watching the whole system that I just joined on, this industry, completely go reverse of what we were taught. Bad decisions, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But it didn't happen that way. So then I start reading and watching, like, how is this stupid thing even working? Like, how does this whole economy thing? And like, for example, when you were in university, did they ever teach you, what did you graduate when you with a focus in?
Political science.
Okay, so did you have to ever learn about the Federal Reserve?
A little bit.
What did you ever learn?
Well, I know that, and then I didn't learn much about it, but what I've learned through crypto is that the Federal Reserve, that name itself, is deceiving. Yeah. And they're not a part of the government.
No, it's not federal.
It's a bank. It's just like any other bank.
It's like Bank of America.
Exactly.
And you know it's against the law to name your company anything federal.
Really?
Like you can't make yourself like federal staffing or federal oil or something like that.
That's fascinating.
Because it's it can be so deceiving.
Wow.
Now I know there's Federal Credit, what is that? Federal Credit Union or something like that?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how the deal with that, but there's
Capital Federal.
Oh, Capital Federal.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why they get away, because it's not federal capital. But anyway, so you're right, Federal Reserve. So I'm saying, what the hell is this? What in university, in all my hours and hours in credit classes and whatever, all I knew was a public-private bank. Like, that's it. No, it's a private bank made up of bankers, and how many of them, I figure, are there 10 or 12 that make up the board? They're not all U.S. citizens, and they decide how the U.S. monetary system is going to work. And when I start looking into this, I'm thinking, okay, I guess we need that, right? Well, do we? Because at the same time, I'm thinking, how is it that we can afford all these wars? Like, now this was, like 8 years ago when I finished university, but even sitting here today, we are currently dropping 25,000 bombs across 7 different countries with 13 disclosed in 13 different countries across Africa, disclosed special operations, and we're also maintaining military bases in 130 different out of 185 countries. And I'm thinking, how do we afford that? Well, because the U.S. just issues debt and the Federal Reserve buys it. Like, wait a second. And then it doesn't take that much research to really figure out. It's just one giant washing machine. And so I got so frustrated thinking, wait a second. Everything I learned in university is now upside down.
Right.
What is this actual Federal Reserve doing? And then you come full circle, and, well, they are the one printing the dollars. They're the ones controlling the monetary system. So not only am I kind of frustrated that everything I learned is not true, but that it's like just like the whole monetary system seems very corrupt and just clearly unethical. So and then I've got like my grandfather, who before he died, he would always tell us like a Butterfinger used to cost a penny, right? Why doesn't a Butterfinger cost a penny anymore? It's not like the cost of creating a Butterfinger increased, right?
Right.
Why does it cost like $2 now for a butter?
Inflation.
Sure, but
right.
why so much inflation?
Right.
Well, you look at how much money has been printed over the last 110 years from the Federal Reserve.
Right.
So there you go. So in the first couple of years of my professional career, I've become very distrustful of the federal banks, of the banks in general, especially the Federal Reserve. And then so that's kind of where I'm at now. So now I'm like 3.5, 4 years into working, and I'm extremely distrustful of.
You're jaded.
Yeah,
because you've gone down this road that has exposed a whole different reality to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way to put it. Very jaded. And I look back at that was right when I think that was. Do you remember the Occupy Wall Street groups?
Yeah, they wasn't that long ago.
Right. They were protesting big banks have too much power, and then you have the Tea Party groups who are protesting the government has too much power. And I'm sitting here thinking, why can't we all just get along? Because the big banks and the big governments are all just working together.
Right.
So yeah, that's where all my distrust came in. I really liked the investments, really liked the idea of buying low, selling high, putting deals together, that type of thing. But I was extremely jaded, like you said, that the whole thing seemed so clearly messed up. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, but there's over the last, say, 30, 35 years, let's see, what are we in 2018? Since the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, they've slowly but surely been passing more and more legislation to control, like you said, I asked you earlier, how money works and who gets to use it and who doesn't get to use it. So there are things like the Bank Secrecy Act. That's a fun one. Or like the Anti-Drug Abuse Act. So like that's the one Nixon signed into law.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, of course we're not supposed to abuse drugs. Like drugs bad, outlaw them. That's only like 10% of the legislation. The other 90% is giving the IRS extreme powers to investigate anybody it thinks might be dealing in drugs. It sets up all these rules about if you come in or come out of the country, or if you spend more than $10,000, that type of stuff. It gives all sorts of new agencies new powers to track everyone and how they're spending and using their money. So you've got that. Then you've got, I'm forgetting a few more, but then you come to more modern days with the Patriot Act, which is a ton of financial surveillance. And then kind of the nail in the coffin was, and Obama put this one together and Trump reauthorized it, but the National Defense Authorization Act, that basically gives every intelligence agency carte blanche access to every financial transaction anyone in the United States does.
Okay. Watch your elbow there, just because it's going to knock this and
the stand.
sound.
Okay, cool.
So you can pull it a little closer to you.
Okay.
So my experience started with Coinbase.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use Coinbase?
Not anymore.
Okay. Because I saw that they recently, the government passed some bill where they have to expose all of their information, who the members are, and how much the members are trading, all the transaction amounts, and the government passed a bill so they can have visibility to that. So their members can be taxed essentially.
Okay, so I don't know if they actually passed legislation.
Okay.
But it was about this time last year.
Mm-hmm.
The feds did come down on Coinbase and said, Coinbase, give us all of your data. That way we can make sure that people are taxed appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
Coinbase fought them, and they came to a compromise that anyone who had more than 20,000 annually, they would give over a certain amount of that data. So they didn't have to give it over entirely, but they did give some over. But I also stopped using Coinbase because it was earlier this spring where WikiLeaks had something like, how many thousands of Bitcoin did they have? Like 20,000 Bitcoin or something. And it was all through Coinbase, and Coinbase froze 100% of their stuff.
Okay. And for those who don't know what Coinbase is, how would you describe Coinbase in a sentence?
Coinbase is the largest retail, so like easy access way to buy Bitcoin, or I think they're up to 8 coins you can buy.
Okay.
But easily the number one. It was a San Francisco, Silicon Valley startup, got a huge amount of funding, and basically they are the number one in the United States right now as far as making it easy for anyone to buy and own and send around Bitcoin and crypto.
So would you compare it to like the NASDAQ or the Dow?
No. So that's okay.
But on obviously different currency, but would you compare it to it as a similar platform?
No, not at all. I'd compare it more to like Fidelity or Charles Schwab.
Oh, okay.
Where like you want to buy Apple stock, so how are you going to buy it?
The user is more.
Yep. You would open an account at Charles Schwab,
right,
and then buy your Apple stock.
The user has more play with their own individual money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So when I was on a year ago, I think there was 4 coins, and I had money in Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin. That might have been it. I don't know. And so I think
that's all you could at the time.
Right.
Just those 3.
And so I saw a little surge. I didn't have hardly any money in it, but it was fun to kind of see your money grow, whether it's a small amount or a big amount.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it got right towards Christmas, it started to taper off. And I, like most people that weren't that indulged in it, I said, you know what, this has been fun, but I'm out.
Yeah.
And then it got some bad press. I also was seeing I saw the thing where there's some large percentage where I think it's like 80 or 90% of all the coins are owned by select few people.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was almost like this elitist theory going on within the crypto world. What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't seen that.
Okay. So I'm just making that up probably.
Well, there is like the oldest wallet,
Uh-huh.
the Genesis wallet or Satoshi wallet.
But like who are the twins?
Yeah, that's the Winklevoss twins.
The Winklevoss twins.
Yeah, the Facebook guys.
Right. I heard that they own they own the majority of the coins that were in the market.
No, so as far as all the coins minted, there's not any one individual or even group that owns over, a concerning amount. Let me put it that way. Amount that makes me concerned that one person could. If someone did, so that's what's really cool about the world of crypto is that, and we'll just say Bitcoin right now because we could go so deep, but most people only have heard of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, when it was developed, and for people who might want to just see something that helps them, there's a documentary on Netflix called Banking on Bitcoin.
It's great.
It explains it so. Whenever I sign on a new client, and I've never gotten to do this in the past, but I'm saying
you're just like, stop, watch this.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm not going to accept your money. You're not going to open an account. We're not going to do the paperwork until you've watched this documentary. I've never been able to give people homework before doing work with me, but now because I take such pride, but I want to make sure that they're not just in it just like here make me quick money. Like once you understand what's going on, you'll do it. You understand. So where was I even going with that? Because we were talking about the number of consolidated people that have this.
And so to piggyback off that, another thing that I was hearing about was pump and dumps with these with these smaller coins where because there's over 1,300 different cryptos.
There's over 1,600 now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That you can trade. I mean, there's another 1,000 or so that are doing fundraising and early stage development right now. So there's a lot.
So, and then you see these small coins you've never heard of surge way up.
Yeah.
And then you might make a fortune off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, it's back down to a very small number.
Yeah.
And so how do you, I think people get confused about that. They get scared. It seems unfair to people. So folks with that kind of mindset, what would you tell them?
I say stay out.
Okay.
Yeah. No, so
it's not for you.
No, you're right, because here's what's happening, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And this is something that really frustrated me about back in 08, 09. Like I said, what you're taught in business school or economics or whatever is in a free market, you're free to go out and try to start a business. But if you fail, then you fail, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not what happened. They took extreme risk. They knew it was almost unsustainable, if not completely, and then they failed, but then they got bailed out. In the world of crypto, a phrase I like to use is radical self-responsibility. Because if you screw up, it's all on you. If you send your Bitcoin to the wrong address, the only way you're getting it back is if whoever received it sends it back to you. And if you sent it to some guy in Egypt, if I've received 1,000 Bitcoin in my wallet this morning by somebody who accidentally sent it, I would have serious thoughts like, gosh, should I just keep this? I know whoever sent that to me must have done it by accident. But you're right. People who get in, this is the same thing. People have been falling for scams since we've been around, right? Like, did you see that guy who went on Shark Tank and tried to sell the sharks on a shopping rebate card pyramid scheme?
Mm-mm.
I don't know how he got on, but he literally got on, and the sharks all know immediately it's a pyramid scheme. And the woman's like, okay, so let me get this straight. You're up here, right? Yeah. And then you get us sharks on right here? Yeah. And what you want us to do is get our network below us and build it out. Yeah. And she's doing this. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do this. So when people try to get involved in crypto, and you're right, there are somewhere between 1,600, 1,700 tokens on exchanges that you can buy right now. Mm-hmm. What does that mean, though? Like, how many of them are quality tokens? Why would you buy any of them? Right. Who's behind them?
Right.
There are so many questions you have. And that's, what did I just ask? 3 questions? When I was in Washington, D.C. at a blockchain conference in July, speaking, giving a talk. And that's what I did. I thought, what could I actually, I don't want to go up there and just, a lot of people right now are going to these conferences and just kind of puffing themselves up and showing their ego off. Mm-hmm. And I thought, how can I just give away something that's going to be really valuable? So you can find out my YouTube page. They recorded it. It's 10 minutes long. And I just went step by step on how we, the Hold Fund, do due diligence.
Okay.
So right now I've got a 36-point due diligence checklist. And so if you're really going to take $100 or $100 million and put it into this stuff, don't be an idiot, okay? Don't read a BuzzFeed article that has 5 tokens you've never heard about or something like that, because people
That's what I would do.
That's what way too many people do.
Yeah.
And then they come out and they say, yeah, I heard about Poster Coin. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, what do they do? Well, they make posters and they've tokenized it, and kids in college love posters, okay? So, so anyway.
So instead of doing all this and trying to keep up with the crypto game, I could say, hey, Ryan, here's some money.
Yeah.
I'd like for you to just take care of it, manage it, and you get to deal with all the trends. And when I lose money, I'm going to call you and find out what the deal is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make me some money.
I basically just copied. So the last 8 years of my career, my entire professional career, I've been in investment management, wealth management. Mm-hmm. So people have money. They want to make more money. You can put it in the stock market. You can put it into real estate deals. You can put it into oil and gas deals. You can put it into debt financing, where small businesses, medium-sized businesses need mezzanine financing or private equity deals, whatever. You take people's money, you put it into different deals, you make them more money. So basically, I've been into Bitcoin. I bought my first amount of Bitcoin in 2013. It was racing from $60 to $70 to $80, and I thought I was about to miss out on everything. And so that's when I first bought. It was just right about $100 per Bitcoin. So when, I can get back to that, but like you were saying, when I finally took the jump and the plunge and I quit traditional finance, I was thinking, what should the structure be? And I thought that, you know what? People want to get in. This is going to change everything. So I'll just mirror the same setup I had. Everybody has a separately managed account, an annual fee, small fees for all the work that I do, and then finally educate the clients and make sure they get it and they understand what's going on. So like you said, 1,600, 1,700 coins, maybe 50 of them are even worth considering putting money into.
Okay.
Maybe 50.
Say I had $1,000 laying around, and I just want to have the tiniest little piece in this world.
Yeah.
And not looking to make money in the short term. I just want to put something, let it sit, and see what happens in 15 years, and just slow play it. What would you recommend?
For somebody like that, I mean, for first things first, none of this is investment advice, right? So don't be an idiot, people. Do your research, contact somebody. Contact me if you want to, I don't care. But don't take this as, because like there's this other thing in this industry, compliance is so killer. If you ever see people advertising in the world of finance, there's so much fine print because they have to cater to the lowest common denominator, the town idiot.
Right.
So none of this is financial advice. But if you wanted to do that and just set it and forget it, just buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because here's what's going on with Bitcoin, okay? And a lot of people don't realize this, especially in the United States. Bitcoin, it's not a thing. It's just computer code, okay? You'll never see one. You'll never touch one. It's just computer code. But what it is a set of cryptographic features mixed in with some game theory to make sure that you and I and everyone else involved are playing by the rules. And it's completely borderless. There's no jurisdiction to stop it. The only way you could stop it from getting into your country is by turning off the internet. And if you do that, well, you've got much bigger problems at that point. And the reason I say a lot of people in the United States can't really understand why this is so big is because we have the strongest economy in the world. And yeah, 08, 09 was difficult, but it really didn't. What did it really do? Yeah, sure, your 401k went down, and yes, a lot of people did lose their homes, but the value of the dollar stayed pretty stable. You go down to Venezuela. Actually, let's just say this. You go down to South America.
Yeah.
Look in the history of South America for the last, say, 75 years, and none of them need to be lectured on the benefits of a currency that isn't controlled by a tyrannical or a corrupted or a cartel-based government. None of them need to be lectured on how inflation works because they see it every day. I think it's Argentina. I have a friend here in town who lived there for quite a few years. Argentina has had 17 different recognized currencies in the last 40 years.
Okay. Wow. I did not know that.
Right.
I've bin there, but I was 16. I don't remember.
Yeah. A few years ago, if you remember, in the course of like 3.5 months, I have a good friend, Annie, who lives in Brazil, Sao Paulo.
Okay.
And in the course of like 3 to 4 months, the value of, is it the real? The Brazilian real?
I don't know.
I believe it's the real. Dropped by 35%.
Wow. Okay.
You see what's going on in Venezuela. Look over to Zimbabwe. Everybody uses that as a classic example. Turkey. I have friends, connections in Turkey. The last few years have been very, very, very difficult. So this is where I think a lot of people in the United States don't see it. We're so, I hate to use this word because it's so political now, but privileged.
Yep. No, there's a lot of that going on.
We're extremely fortunate to live in a country that's so stable. So when you have second, third world nations who have, whether it's a warlord in somewhere in Africa or drug cartels, which happen to be a lot of Central America right now, or just purely corrupt, or maybe it's a religious corruption, whatever it is, people are begging for a third option that's not.
And so how does that look like? So if, I'm going to sound really naive, but say we're in Africa, in Zimbabwe, and one villager is buying vegetables from another villager, and they want to use a currency. How, in 2018, I mean, I'm assuming they don't have smartphones. I could be wrong. How are they going to make that cryptocurrency exchange? Or is this something that you see happening 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been very fortunate. I've been able to travel to spend like time in 41 different countries.
Wow.
And there's not a single country that does not have smartphones. I got to spend time in Burma, Myanmar, which is just east of Thailand. So for the last 60 years, they've had their borders completely shut off and it was ruled by just one dictator. And they opened the borders in late 2011, and I spent 2 weeks there in 2013. And talk about alien. That was the most. Now I still have my good friend Tun Lin is there. Now I keep in touch, and like economic development is happening. But when I was there, it was like nothing I'd ever seen. Even though
how so? In
because
terms of
there was no internet. There was no there was electricity, but it was very, very. You could expect rolling brownouts all over the place. And it was kind of strange to say, but I was the only white man around, and in their capital city, Yangon, I would walk around all day and I wouldn't see anybody. I was taller than everyone. Back then I had long hair like down to my shoulders. So here's this tall, white-skinned, tan, but like blonde, long-haired guy walking around. Everybody was stopping to meet me or talk to me. Young kids. Nobody spoke English except for young kids. Mm-hmm. And then it looked like a colonial, old traditional colonial, like British Empire style town.
Interesting.
That had after World War I, when everything broke apart and World War II started to happen, and everybody around Africa and Asia, because that used to be British Empire, were all breaking up and forming their own nations. That's when Burma went into this civil war thing, and they shut their borders off. So if you can picture, you have a British Empire run colony, and then they gain independence, shut the borders off, no e-commerce in or out. So they're just like kind of like Cuba, people say, oh, it's so cute. They've got these old cars. It's like, that's not cute. They're forced to have those cars. Similar thing in Burma, where they didn't really develop new industry or anything, or new buildings. You walk through Yangon and it's still old British colonial architecture and old buildings. So it was very, very, but it was all kind of dystopian, where it wasn't, none of it was really upkept that well.
Right.
It was just not America.
Right.
You're used to a very civil, planned out society, where in Myanmar it was very much, do what you got to do. People were very kind and very respectful and very helpful.
So do you
just wasn't first world.
Right. So you use Venmo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Venmo's very easy.
Yeah.
And just about everybody's on it.
Yeah.
I see crypto being used in the same way. So
Yeah.
if you and I are in a marketplace in Burma, and I want to buy corn from you, instead of handing you the dollars or
Right.
the physical currency,
Mm-hmm.
I maybe have a sign above your shop or something of that nature.
Yeah,
then you can easily, or maybe even tap phones, and so it sends the currency that way.
Okay, so now here's the thing. So, and now I get off tangents on sometimes. You were asking about how easy is this going to be? How quickly will it adopt? First things first, what happens to all those old smartphones? It's not like they just all get destroyed.
From America?
Yeah, a lot of them just get sent off to other
Yeah.
second, third world nations. So
after they're a year old,
yeah. I mean, like
toss them
iPhone.
out.
What are we on? iPhone
10?
version 10 or
10?
9?
Yeah.
I think it's like the 9th version, but they call it X or whatever it is. What happened to 2, 3, and 4? Like, those aren't all being destroyed. A lot of those are just refurbished and sent off to second, third. So yes, to answer your question, although Android is far, far, far more popular globally than iPhone.
Heck yeah, they
But
are.
yeah. So having a smartphone is not a leap. Everybody's got a smartphone. You'd be really shocked at how many people in second developing nations have smartphones. Internet is not that difficult anymore, especially with Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
You look at groups like the Gates Foundation, where they're trying to install Wi-Fi across entire countries and stuff. Internet is not difficult to come across anymore. These second and third world nations are now doing technological leaps where they went from having no internet to having high-speed internet. They're not going to have to go through 56K or DSL like we did. Okay, so now there's that part. Now here's a fun little thing that nobody really knows about. I know this guy here in town from Kenya. Have you heard of M-Pesa? The letter M, P-E-S-A? Okay, so the national currency of Kenya is pesa. But like many second, third world nations, it's a very unstable economy. So is it Vodafone? Gosh, it's not important to the story, but Vodafone, I believe, is the number one cell phone carrier across the whole country.
Okay.
They have their minutes, right? They call them M-Pesas, whatever. When Kenya was going through a lot of economic turbulence about 10 years ago, people at the market, I make shoes, you grow food. I would say, hey, look, Peyton, I want your food, but these Kenyan pesos are worth crap. We don't know how about I just send you some of my minutes? And so I don't know. It's just one of those really bizarre organic things. Okay, I'll accept your minutes. And then somebody started trading, and boom, 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 boom. M-Pesa, which are the mobile credits, are now just as good and just as reliable as the actual Kenyan currency. So mobile minutes, which was like the first version of Bitcoin, has been around in Kenya for 10 years now.
There was a Justin Timberlake movie where they had minutes and they would give them to each other.
Okay, so okay, so I don't know which one that was.
No, well, and that's always been my thing is, okay, if I'm in Western Kansas and I go to a crusty old gas station down a gravel road, will there ever be the opportunity to use cryptocurrency at a mom and pop shop, and you're painting that picture, which is really what I think is the only way for this thing to really become mainstream. Totally.
Well, like if you go to that mom and pop shop off the dirt road in Western Kansas, will you probably pay with a debit card? There's probably
now you definitely can.
Yeah.
10 years ago, 5 years ago, it still could be cash only.
True. Absolutely. So that's kind of what I was getting at is, maybe they'll take a little longer to adopt, but I think eventually they will. Absolutely. So to go back now, so it's not even a foreign idea for people to have an electronic form of payment, especially like I said in like countries like all across South America where they've had extremely unstable economies. You've got countries like in Kenya where they're already used to using digital currencies, right? Like M-Pesa. And then you've got places like China. There is a documentary, I think it was a Vice. It's like Vice sometimes will make these really good 10 to 15 minute short documentaries.
Sometimes.
Yeah, right, sometimes. And they've got this one about how China is already a cashless society. And there's this woman, she's really famous on the internet she's like an attractive Chinese woman. That's why she's half the reason she's so popular among the tech nerds, but also because she tears down and builds up tech toys. So Vice contacts her and the two of them. She takes them around for like a weekend across China. China is almost entirely cashless. Almost entirely, not obviously in the countryside, not yet.
Right.
But every major city, damn near everything you do is cashless.
And what's the majority of what they're using for currency? Is it card?
No. No. I should actually be more clear. Like mobile.
Okay.
So I think it's WeChat. WeChat is the most now like China is their own little economy.
Right.
They have their own version of Google search. They have their own version of Facebook. Right. They've got their own Amazon. Right. Alibaba.
Is this a free market system that they created? The citizens created, or did the government create this?
Yeah. Right. So that's a good question. The government. It's free market with approval of the government. So like Alibaba, which is their version of Amazon, or Baidu, which is their version of Google, or WeChat, which is their chat service. Their what do we use? Telegram. What's the other one? WhatsApp. Whichever one it is.
GroupMe.
Yeah. That's and so it's it's all with the blessing of the Chinese government. But WeChat has integrated payments. So whether you're paying your rent or paying at a restaurant or paying at the laundromat or paying you individually, whatever it is, China is damn near completely paperless. And so when you come to say like, when's this going to adopt?
It's already going on.
It's already going on. It's just now of a infrastructure inversion. So like, do you know that guy Andreas Antonopoulos? He's like that kind of weird. He's got kind of a whiny voice with like a really sharp. Anyway, he's a thought leader or whatever you want to call it in crypto.
Okay.
And I was listening to him talk one time, and he's talking about infrastructure inversions, and he was talking about. So he's like late 30s, early 40s. So he was super nerd right in the middle of when internet got taken off. Just old enough to love it and understand it, just young enough to dedicate his life to it. And he's talking about back when in the early 90s when the internet first got started. And you think about when internet companies were trying to lay line, they would reach out to the telephone companies and say, hey, you've already got all this network line out there. Let us
use your infrastructure.
You've already got fiber cables laid down. Like, that's what we need. It will be like high speed. Nope, lay your own cables, son. We're not going to work with you.
Most people don't know Sprint has had fiber for over 10 years.
Yeah, fiber.
Like this, the Google Fiber thing is not new.
Right. This 1,000 megabytes per second thing could have been done in 2005,
right,
or like even further back. So you're right. So back in the 90s, when internet's trying to expand and telecoms are saying, hell no, we're not going to. Okay, fine. So they tough it out and they make it. Well, in the early 2000s is when there was an infrastructure inversion where all telephone now is run off the internet. Whether it's a landline or your cell phone, all telephone is now run off of internet cables. So there's no more telephone cables, internet cables. There's just internet fiber networks, and all the telecoms now run off of that because it's more efficient, it's faster, and that's where the technology is now. So while crypto as a payment system isn't worldwide, you're not paying for dinner in crypto yet, you're not at the laundromat paying in crypto yet, blah blah blah.
When do you think that'll happen?
Well, it's happening now. So obviously people do use it.
When do you think it'll happen?
Yeah.
At
Realistically,
Q39 in Kansas City. Give me a year.
Probably, truly, truth be told, probably not for 4 to 6 years. I really think what will have to happen, aside from that, like I said, the telecom versus the internet fight, right? I think you're going to have a major event happen where people start to be more skeptical about, why am I using this dollar? Like my dollar.
Do you think there's going to have to be more fear?
Yeah, like an economic situation is going to come up because a lot of people are saying, now this gets into economics and such, but there's a lot of data out there, and it's not like it's hidden. If you can just read the numbers and you can read how much debt there is or how much spending there is, the U.S. government is responsible for the U.S. dollar, right? It's backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, even though it says Federal Reserve note on it. If something major were to happen and there's another like 2007, 2008 type situation, well, I don't know. See, I don't like to try to fearmonger, but I would think based off of just how much more debt there is right now that wasn't, like back then people were spread thin, but that was mainly just in like your homes. Because the home market was the first to go. Now you've got student loan debt. Student loan debt's the largest single amount of debt there is, and like 35% of debt is defaulted on already.
How does this student loan debt tie into crypto?
Well, because it ties in the sense that it's all based on the dollar. So if the student loan bubble, if enough people stop paying their student loans in default, it's going to affect other safe investment markets like bond markets, because people will buy bonds that need very conservative investments, right? Endowments, pension funds, retirement, that type of thing. Well, they'll buy student debt because it's supposed to be a safe type. Same with home. That's why the whole 08 thing was so chaotic, because real estate and home ownership mortgages, that's the gold standard, right? So that type of, you've got credit card debt, which is at an all-time high in the United States. You've got auto loan debt, which is at an all-time high. I saw a startup out of San Francisco that just got like 20 million in startup money that will finance travel now. So now you can put travel on a credit. Like, hey, you want to go to London for a week? There's a startup now that will finance it, and then you pay them installments over the next like 2 years with like 5 or 10% interest. So like we're on this borrowing economy. So how student loans and this world of crypto work together, and then I'm going to dive into something far more intricate, is that if another, and I'm not saying it will, but if another economic collapse situation happens, you're going to see where there's so much dollars out there and so much bad investment that the value of a dollar will start to drop. So you'll see, like, has anyone noticed why your rents are going up and gas prices are going up and groceries are going up, but your payment your salaries are staying the same? Well, that's the Fed printing money, right? The last 8 years, they printed more money than the last 90 years combined. And so if the economic collapse happens and they do it again, then there will be a lot of distrust in what the dollar power actually has. Okay, so let's just say all of this skyrockets, all of us start defaulting. Now what? Well, hey, we've got this Bitcoin idea here where there's nobody who runs it. There's no board of directors in a smoky, dark room who gets to control how it's used or who uses it. It's written in the initial code that there will only ever be 21 million, so they're not going to inflate it. Hey, we really need some stimulus package. We need to jumpstart this economy. Let's print more Bitcoin. That won't ever happen. So there's a fixed amount. So the people that are holding on to it, that while we're sending it back and forth for goods and services, okay, in your recruiting staffing, you're a small business owner. You could tell people, hey, I'd prefer if you just pay me in Bitcoin. Or if I own a small market, then is when you're going to start putting that sign up that says, hey, I accept Bitcoin. Or if, Olive Garden, that's a national chain, but maybe, I'm trying to think, what's a locally owned restaurant? Q39, that's a locally owned, maybe they'll put a sign up that says, hey, in the next major downturn of the economy, they're going to say, look, we accept Bitcoin. All these hairdressers accept Bitcoin, nail people, massage parlors, we accept. So you're going to see small businesses that will start saying like, you know what? I don't think I want to play with this dollar anymore. Like, it was fun while it lasted because we just kept printing more and it seemed stable. But now here's the other part. Okay, so that's half of it. So like this is what gets people. That's, you know, that photo of the iceberg. Yeah. And you see just the very top of it, and then like it's the whole bottom. So like that's crypto, right? Really, everybody only knows about what's on the top, the Bitcoin thing, but nobody realizes what's going on underneath, which is what's really exciting. Is that in 2014, because Bitcoin is all open source, meaning anybody can go look at all the code that makes it work. Some people started toying with the code and said, hey, maybe we can tweak it here, here, and here, and here, and we can create something called smart contracts. So basically, you and I want to work with each other, and now this code, this smart contract, will automatically make it happen. You don't have to trust me, I don't have to trust you, but the code of this smart contract makes it work. And it's so much more complicated than that, but just for layman, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Right.
So now there's this Ethereum coin, right? And so Ethereum, the way I describe it to people, Bitcoin is supposed to be kind of an alternative to dollars. Okay. Whereas Ethereum, picture Ethereum being like Apple iOS, where you can build apps on it.
Just platform.
Yeah, platform. So you remember do you remember when iPhone first came out? And like, apps, man, apps are the new thing. Like, what the hell am I gonna do with freaking apps? But now I've got Venmo, now I've got Snapchat, now I've got Slack, now I've got Audible, now I've got HQ if I want to do a little trivia.
There's an app for everything.
Shazam. We were talking earlier, we've got Bumble, Tinder, whatever the hell you want to. You've got these apps, and like, no, Uber is app only. You can't get Uber on your desktop computer. Nobody would argue now that apps are not absolutely revolutionizing our lives, right? So here's Ethereum, which has its own token, and that's the way you interact on its platforms, by using the Ethereum token.
And a token is
it's just a value. It's just a way to communicate value or ownership in the network. So like Bitcoin's a token. Okay. So Ethereum's got their token. So what they're doing now, this is what's really crazy. You're streaming this live on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Right? I mean, I'm just kind of asking it like rhetorically. So you're streaming this live on YouTube. So you guys are probably familiar with the drama going on YouTube right now. YouTube is a centralized company, right? Yes. Much like the US dollar. The US dollar is centralized. A group of individuals in a boardroom get to determine how the dollar will work, right?
And banning Alex Jones.
Absolutely. So like that's the biggest one right now. Alex Jones in 1 week was banned off of 26 or 27 different social media platforms. Wow. How inconvenient. Whether you like him or not, that's pretty shocking that his entire business model can be wiped off the map in 1 week. All through social, centralized organizations, right? What Ethereum is allowing are completely decentralized, much like Bitcoin, decentralized organizations to form, or decentralized applications. They call them dApps. So a couple of examples, like what the hell does that mean? Give me something to like, base that on. So let's say, for example, you're putting this on YouTube right now. There is an Ethereum-based platform. Now, I'll preface all of this with this entire industry, economy, ecosystem, if you could compare it to a human being, is a child that is learning to walk. A lot of people who don't understand are like, when are we running, man? When are we going to go to the Olympics and start jumping hurdles and stuff? I'm like, let's pump the brakes and just appreciate that we've just learned to crawl and that now we're starting to learn to walk, and like we're taking a few steps and like it's working, but we're not to the point where we're running, and we're certainly not to the point where we're going to be going to the Olympics to, compete against Usain Bolt or anything like that. Soon, yes. But right now, this whole technology is in its infancy and learning to walk. One of the biggest game changers out there right now is a network that's being built with Ethereum called Steam. And Steam is a social media platform. One of the platforms that uses Steam is called DTube. So if you go to the website d.tube, that's the address, you'll see a website that looks really, really almost identical to YouTube, except D stands for decentralized. It's not centralized at all. So if you use YouTube...
I'm glad you're saying this, because YouTube's the only player in the game. There's There's is it
Vimeo?
Vimeo, but no one goes on that.
No, like artists.
Yeah.
No, no disrespect to artists. But like, come on, it's just Vimeo.
But look, my 2.5-year-old nephew. I mean, he's watching YouTube all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, whoa, maybe we need some other options here. And for them to have the ability to pull someone off and call the shots, that's not American.
Right. So, well, okay, yeah, and especially because there's already legislation out there that was passed quite a few years ago that says specifically for internet companies, you're not responsible. You can either claim full responsibility for the content on your platform, in which case you can censor and do whatever you want to, or you can just let it be free. And because you're an intermediary, right? You don't have to claim responsibility for Alex Jones and anything crazy you might think he puts out there. But the other part is people who have a huge following. People want to monetize, right? People can make a living. On YouTube, you have to reach a certain threshold before you can even monetize and get paid, right, for your YouTube work. But even then, YouTube can pull it. They can demonetize videos. They can censor videos. They can say, you know what, you played 3 seconds of a song that's, I don't know, a Taylor Swift song. We're pulling the video, whatever it is, and completely wipe you out. Again, especially in the last 2 years, you've seen political censorship happening a lot. So not only for you as your political thoughts, but you just whatever you may be doing, censor your topics, your discussion. You see it was kind of funny, about 3 months ago, a guy who just did a review on YouTube. He had a YouTube channel where he just did guns. Old guns, new guns, foreign guns, American guns, whatever. He'd take them apart, put them together, shoot them, show you how they work, educate people on guns. And he got pulled, completely banned overnight, and he's not on there now. But he posted all of his videos to some porn website, and they're like, okay, cool. And so he just out of spite, just to show like how silly the whole thing was, and this porn website would allow him to put all this stuff on there. So what I'm getting at,
no, it's really good. You've tied everything together with the reality that we are living in now, and how crypto fits really nicely into getting away from centralized
everything,
organizations, government.
And Bitcoin was the first one. Bitcoin was centralized money, which is absolutely the most powerful thing in the world right now. Money.
I'm back on board. I'm all in.
Well, hang on, because I'm not even all the way through this yet. So here comes DTube, right? So you go on DTube and you create an account, whatever, and you can live stream on DTube just like you are here. You can post your videos on. Now here's the thing, just like I said, the rest of the crypto world, it's still crawling, so it's not huge yet. But you guys go to DTube, you'll see people. You get paid right then, right there, for whatever content you make. So if you put a video on today, it could be a flop and you get paid nothing, right? Or you could start to post 2 or 3 a week, and then you build a following, and the more it's built into the algorithm on day one when they hit go, just like Bitcoin, the algorithm, the initial constitution of this network, that the algorithm looks for how many people are commenting and liking and sharing and whatnot that video. And based on that, the Steam network awards you, your account, the user that posted that, Steam tokens, which can be, again, without getting too deep, there is value there. I won't get into how they evaluate it right now. You can cash them out, trade them for Bitcoin if you want to, or US dollars. Okay, so let's see. There's 3 different people in the world, right? There is the 12-year-old who's so go-get-em attitude, but can't get a job because of federal laws. You're too young to work, all this stuff. You've got a little old lady who's 80 years old, who's living off Social Security and is not paying her bills. And she really can't even go to Walmart and become a greeter because she's just like, she's just not a able-bodied person. Right? So you've got those persons. Right. And then you have people who live on the bad side of town. They grew up in a bad neighborhood. They maybe one-parent family. Parent wasn't around, working 2 jobs a lot. Maybe crime in the neighborhood. The schools weren't that great. Didn't have that great of economic opportunity growing up. And pretty much what's going on with them is you can extrapolate out if you just look at statistics. They're probably going to have a very sub-average, below-average lifestyle, right? Work minimum wage jobs. Okay, so there's 3 different styles of people in the world. With DTube, you can get on there, whether you're the old lady, maybe you're the person who's in the bad part of town, but you're really, really good at cooking. So who doesn't have a smartphone? And I don't think I have the photo anymore, but just to drive home a point, I went to Cricket a few weeks ago and took a photo of the smartphones you can buy at Cricket. For $10, you can get a smartphone. Like, created this year, Snapdragon 4.0 whatever processors, like quality smartphones for $10. Anybody can afford a smartphone. Go home. Twice a week, you do a little 20-minute cooking show in your kitchen, and you post it on DTube. That kid who's too young to get a real regulated job can build a following, get paid right then, right there. The little old lady who's at home who can't really do stuff much else can start posting on DTube and build a following right then, right there in that cooking show. Or same with the person on the bad side of town. So what this is doing is absolutely breaking down the barrier. As long as you've got access to a smartphone or a computer and internet, you can start on this social media DTube. Now, Steam, which runs DTube, now, for those of you who know, DTube recently left the Steam network, went to the Lino network, neither here nor there, just for the sake of this discussion. We can keep it with Steam. But just people at home who know what I'm talking about know that I do know the difference. So Steam also has...
And what is Steam for
Steam is the social network.
Users? Okay.
So much like Bitcoin, if you wanted to own Bitcoin, you can buy whatever amount. You don't have to buy one full Bitcoin. You can buy $20 of Bitcoin if you want to. If you want to own part of Steam, you can buy $20 of Steam. No big deal. What I try to describe, and it's a rough description, but it's like a stock market. A new stock market is emerging. Where,
Steam?
Yeah, no, just in general, in crypto.
Okay.
Steam being one of those stocks that you could buy in this new stock market.
Okay.
And the way you'd buy it is by buying one of their tokens. You now show ownership. And to use and participate in the Steam network, you have to use Steam coins, right? So if you just want to sit on it, cool. There's only a fixed amount of Steam tokens. Much like real estate, there's a fixed amount of land. It'll go up and more people are trying to buy it. So Steam is one of these. Steam has a replica of SoundCloud for music, a replica of Instagram for photos, a replica of Reddit, a replica more or less of Medium, like a blog, and then the one I just mentioned, DTube. So you go to DTube right now. Okay, so like big deal, right? I'm just going to keep using YouTube. And you probably could. If you go to DTube right now, there are people who, I gave a presentation maybe 8 weeks ago now, and I took a screenshot that morning just so I could have the most up-to-date numbers and statistics and data usage. There are people on there. There's a guy who does a dog training series. Once or twice a week, he posts a dog training video. He makes like $120 a video. There's a woman on there who does a traveling TV show. It's like 10, 15 minutes per video. And she's just traveling the world, so she'll post whatever she's doing for the week in Thailand or wherever it is she is. Making like $150 a video.
And is she making crypto or is she making...
Yep, she earns Steam coins. But to make it... So Steam's not stupid. They recognize there's a little converter there. It shows like she's got this much Steam dollars, but it also shows what it converts into US dollar. Just to make it easy for all of us to see exactly how much it's worth. $120 is a lot of money for that young kid, the person on the bad side of town, or that older lady.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when Steam network and this whole crypto world, like I said, is in its infancy. Now, let's just say, for example, the DTube network has 20,000 active users right now. I think YouTube has like 1 billion per day. Let's just say Steam and DTube only goes up to 10 million per day. It's going to be so easy to earn once you build a following like you're doing here, or like what I do with mine, or like what they do with the cooking show, or whatever the example you want to use is. It wouldn't be unrealistic to earn a few $100s a week per video, or a few $100s per video if you just do one video a week and you build your following. And if you extrapolate that out, minimum wage right now is like $7.80, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's $7.80 by 40 hours a week is like $500-ish a week before taxes.
Amazon just increased theirs to $15 an hour.
Yeah.
For all their warehouse employees.
Which is nice to see them actually do that. There's obviously a lot of contention with Amazon and their employee, how they treat them.
I think it's a good and bad thing because now, but you have what are they, 100 billion?
So yeah, something like that. Absolutely. Oh no, didn't they just join the? Didn't they just
trillion?
join the 1 trillion club with Apple?
The 1 trillion. Like, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great that the minimum wage is going up. But you shouldn't have a $1 trillion company set the standard for the minimum wage. They're 1 trillion.
Or they could, but they could actually do it like with honor, because they're only doing it because so many people have shamed them so much over the last year and a half for doing. You know that they're not even doing true minimum wage. You know, it's part of like a package.
Yes.
It's like you have to work this many hours and you get this deal and this deal and this deal. Then you get minimum after like 2 years, and the average churn rate of an Amazon employee is like 13 months. Yep. So they've done the data. They're not stupid.
And what's the headline that the average person sees in the media? Amazon raises their minimum wage to $15 an hour, and that's it. And
yeah, well, that was the headline on front page of page 1 of Amazon Washington Post, who's owned by Amazon.
Interesting.
Weird how that works.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've gone down. Obviously, the internet has created a whole new knowledge base, and I think it's great because anybody in the world can get on the internet, realize, wow, my government's corrupt, or good things, bad things about a certain religion, and it's creating exposure.
Or politicians.
It's
voting's going on right now.
But it also, you can go down these holes. And so, do you find yourself becoming more of a Dowdist or a conspiracy theorist on a lot of things?
I'm total conspiracy theorist, but it's not a conspiracy theory if it's fact.
Right.
Right.
And there are some things that are becoming more factual.
Yeah, like the Alex Jones thing.
Yeah.
The worst thing about Alex Jones is that he keeps getting proven right. I hate it. Those gay frogs. Damn, if all the runoff from the chemicals on agriculture weren't actually doing what University of Stanford showed that's actually happening. But no, I'm not becoming it. I'm becoming more optimistic and more hopeful and positive about the future than anything ever. Because think about those Amazon warehouse employees. Do you know anybody that grew up thinking, when I get older, I want to be wringed dry for every ounce of energy as efficiently as possible in some $1 trillion business where the CEO is making something like $100 million, $200 million a day? Nobody does, but they have to because they have bills to pay. But I come back to this Steam network, okay? So like this is just one. There's another network called Golem right now. Golem is it's
Lord of the Rings.
Before that.
Okay.
So before the Lord of the Rings made Golem popular, Golem is known as like a clay mold. You can mold a golem. It's like making a figure out of clay, right? Golem is aiming to be the world's biggest, most powerful supercomputer. So right now, let's say, for example, you want to make a Hollywood film, the next Toy Story. That's all digital, right? All animated. You need to process that on a computer. It's not like you just sketch it out and like, boom, there it is. You sketch it, you do a lot of point and figure, line drawing, rendering. Then you improve it and render. It takes so long and so much money. And right, where do you get that much power? Amazon Web Services, Google's, Google, what do they call I forget what they call their cloud computing. But these gigantic data centers.
Azure?
Yeah, right, absolutely. And because they become more centralized, they get to call the shots, the pricing, again, who gets to use it, who doesn't. So in the nature of decentralization, again, keep in mind, people at home, all of these different networks are just based off of the original Bitcoin source code. All they've done is take the Bitcoin source code, tweak it a little bit, include some of that Ethereum stuff, and then they've created an entirely different network. So that's why it's like a stock market is evolving here, where every single industry is about to be disrupted. I just saw last week, I posted where in China, there is a solar panel decentralized network that's evolved, where if you have solar panels on your home and you join this network, if you get excess sun on your solar panels, you can join this decentralized network and sell it immediately to your neighbors instead of it going to waste and your neighbors having to buy it from the utility company. So maybe 10 or 20 years in the future, all communities are self-sustaining because there's enough solar power on random homes. But anyway, the Golem one. So think about this, and I use this one example a lot because it's so easy for people to grasp. So you are in a Hollywood film studio, you're in a video game development studio, you are in a Wall Street firm that's doing a lot of quantitative computing, you're in a medical research lab that's doing huge amounts of research that's got a lot of computing to do. Or maybe you just work in Photoshop and you just have more than your little laptop can handle. What you can do is log onto the Golem network, and the Golem brings two people together. The first group of people that log on to the Golem network are people who have anywhere from your laptop up to a data center. If you have extra space or extra computing power on your computer, you can log on. So my laptop, I've got two. One of them is on. I run it on the Golem network. And I'm not using it all the time. And while it's not huge, it still is enough to help out whoever. All right? So people who have computer space. They log on to the Golem network. You have the other people, like I said, Hollywood, film studios, video games, medical, whatever, who need huge amounts of computing. And they could either go to Amazon or Google or Azure, like you said, and pay a lot of money for it. And again, have Google track and capture all that data and keep it all on their private servers because that's what they do. Or you can log onto the Golem network. And because now Golem network is global, there's no jurisdiction. It's a global network where anybody who logs onto the internet can log on. You can now, let's just say, for example, you're making the new Toy Story movie, and I'm making these numbers up, but maybe it takes six months to render it, and $1 million of computing power is what you have to pay. Because of how big the Golem network is and how quick it works and the algorithms that are pairing everyone up, you could have the next Toy Story movie done in a week instead of 6 months.
Wow. And
you could have it done for $50,000 instead of $1 million. Because you're no longer paying a centralized company to
Pixar
to toll the roads. Right. No. Pixar would use Golem.
Oh, okay.
Pixar would use Golem instead of using Google or Azure or whoever.
Okay. Interesting.
So now you have average Joes. Again, go back to that example of where you've got the young kid, the older lady, and the person from the bad side of town. Maybe they don't know how to cook. Maybe that social media thing's not for them. But damn it, they've got $5,000 saved. They go down to Best Buy, buy a few hard drives or GPUs or whatever, plug it into their computer, log on to the Golem network, and get paid $100 a week, $200 a week, $500 a week to help Hollywood and video games and medical people, all these universities crunch these huge numbers. That way, very much like you've noticed computers at home are getting much smaller and people are using the cloud more. That's how this will go, where you don't need to buy a Hollywood studio no longer needs to buy a full factory worth of data centers. You just log onto the Golem network. You've got a globe. You might have some person in China, some person in South Africa, some person in Canada who's helping you to render that new movie, and they're getting paid directly. Again, there's no middleman, there's no fees, and because there's no fees, because there's no centralization, no CEOs or board of directors, it's just a network, and people have a really difficult time understanding what that means or how that works. But I'd ask them, like, who owns email?
Right.
Email is the exact same thing. It's just a protocol. It's just an algorithm that says party A does this, party B does this.
Yeah, platform.
And nobody owns it.
Right.
Google has a version, but they don't own email.
Some of these things that you brought up, these new technologies, new platforms, how does blockchain integrate in those conversations? Does it?
Blockchain is what makes them work.
Okay.
Blockchain is what makes it feasible. So like blockchain as an idea,
can you break blockchain down as simple as possible?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm the 80-year-old.
Yeah, totally.
Woman.
No, absolutely.
What's blockchain?
So blockchain is not a new idea. It's been around for 25 years, 30 years. But it's like, hey, good job if you had the idea for YouTube in 1990. Like, the tech wasn't there to support it. Blockchain, it is what makes Bitcoin work. Bitcoin, if we can just make it easy, let's just say there are 5 pieces that make Bitcoin work. Blockchain is one of those 5 pieces. And the phrase blockchain wasn't actually introduced into the lexicon, if you will, until maybe like 2014-ish. So Bitcoin had already been around for 5 years before anybody ever used the phrase blockchain. It's just a way to describe the algorithms that make Bitcoin work. So it's just, like I said, Bitcoin's all open source. So when somebody wants to create the Golem network or the Steam network or Ethereum or whatever new token comes out next week, what they're really doing is going to the Bitcoin code, copying and pasting the blockchain code, and tweaking it to work in the fashion that they want to. So whether it's shipping and logistics, or whether it's financial transactions, or whether it's medical records and safety and data storage or whatever, they're all just copying some of the original Bitcoin source code. So that's what blockchain is. It's just a bunch of if-then statements that's all computer algorithm. It's a little piece of what makes Bitcoin work. Was that good?
Let's go a little deeper.
Okay.
What is an everyday occurrence or something that your average Joe uses that already has Bitcoin, or excuse me, blockchain within it?
Everything.
Well, give me something specific.
I know. Yeah, everything. So does it have blockchain in it right this moment? Maybe not. Will it? Absolutely. Within 5 years.
What do you think?
And I'll give you some examples too.
Like a YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you some examples here. So shipping and logistics is a very popular one right now. That's one of the easiest to go through because let's just say, for example, have you seen, do you know Milton Friedman?
Say it again.
Milton Friedman, the old economist. He was a real free market Austrian economist.
Yes.
Did you ever see that little bit he did about how much work goes into making one pencil? No. Okay. So, and you can find it on YouTube. It's kind of mind-blowing, really, when you think about it. How much work and how much industry is built around just making a number 2 pencil.
The eraser, the little piece of metal, the paint, the lead, the wood, all coming together.
The trucks that ship it, the people that are mining it off the rubber trees, the people who are assembling it, the people who are the boxes, the cardboard box, all that stuff, right? That's a supply chain, right?
Okay.
There's so much inefficiency and so much money wasted because you just don't know what's going to come along, and usually you don't
disrupt the process.
Yep. To make it, we're humans. We're always trying to get as efficient and productive as possible in whatever we do, especially supply chains, and you just can't predict it. So here's a real life example of the blockchain. So I was actually telling this story earlier this week. Last July, I was at a conference in St. Louis. It was a blockchain conference, and this was before it got so big. So I could come right up to like you and me, and talk to some of the biggest names in crypto at the time. There was a guy who is running it's already valued in hundreds of millions, a supply chain blockchain consulting company. He'll come to you, you've got whatever your company is that has supply chain manufacturing, whatever, and he implements the tech. Now it's private because it doesn't need to be public. We don't need it to be like Bitcoin where everybody sees it. It's just internally for your company, so it can be private. And he was doing this. Now he said he's working with 3 companies in Japan that are all Fortune 500, 2 of which he's not allowed to talk about, one of which was Toyota. And he said that they were testing the blockchain tech on the supply chain of one of the cars on Toyota's supply chain. And he was kind of, drawing the picture of, you think about all the minerals and equipment and whatnot that goes into a car. So let's just use the Prius, for example. The steel that gets put out of the mine and put into a steel refinery. You've got the minerals for the silicon and all the chips and all of that. And you've got plastics and glass and everything, all coming from around the world, different factories. Those are all going to different assembly plants around the world. And then they're also being assembled. And then after they're being assembled, then they're shipped all around the world to dealerships. Maybe they're being assembled in Atlanta, Georgia. Maybe they're being assembled in Japan. I don't know. But they're being sent out to these dealerships across the world. That's a supply chain. And he was saying that in their first calendar year of using it, they were able to save 14% of overhead and reduce the cost of their supply chain by 14%.
Just because they're making the process of getting all the materials to wherever they make that car, they're making that process more efficient.
Yeah, it's absolutely more efficient.
And what specifically about the blockchain makes it more efficient?
Because everybody from beginning, middle to end is on a live updating ledger.
So it'd be like having a chat room.
Yeah.
That's constantly open and being constantly
and
updated.
That chat room is talking to itself. And that chat room is alerting everyone at the same time when anything new develops. So
it almost is it thinking in a way?
It depends. It kind of is, and that's a deeper conversation. It is kind of thinking, and you got to think of like supercomputers and AI. It's going to be really interesting to see in the next, say, like 5-6 years what develops. Will there be self-sustaining, self-aware blockchains where no human interacts, but in some way it completely is something we rely on every day? Absolutely possible. But so that's one example. Another example is agriculture. So do you remember when Chipotle a couple of years ago had that huge fiasco? Some lettuce, it was bad lettuce, destroyed Chipotle.
E. coli, right?
Yeah, E. coli. Stock was down like 40% in 2 months. They basically had to cut ties with all of their suppliers of lettuce. They had no clue where it came from, so they just cut it right off at the root and just said, all right, everybody restart. Everybody go destroy your lettuce fields and restart. And actually, this is kind of timely because IBM is coming out with this exact thing. They're doing it with Walmart. Walmart is about to put all of their produce on a blockchain. So if something happens and in the Kansas City, Missouri, off of 40 Highway in Blue Ridge Cutoff, Walmart, there's a report of 4 people who got sick from oranges. They will know where those oranges came from because they have those little codes. Everything you buy has got those little barcodes on them. You link that to the blockchain, then you can trace back exactly where it came from, when it came from, who handled it, how quickly it got around, where it sat, did it sit there for too long, blah, blah, blah.
Because being tracked from pretty much the moment it's being harvested.
From the moment it's put onto the truck in the field.
It gets put onto a network.
Yeah, right.
And then the whole thing is tracked.
Yeah, and because Walmart is contracting, and they have that much influence, Walmart can say, hey, you're going to sign on with our blockchain. So yeah, of course we will. And so then they can find out down to the area of the field that banana or that orange or that lettuce was pulled out of.
Wow.
So now this hasn't been available just because of the amount. It's kind of like we used to send letters, but now we send emails. Like we could still send letters, but now we can send emails, and it's so much quicker and so much more efficient. And it wasn't, hey, that would have been cool if you had that idea for some type of electronic communication in 1950 when it first came out. I think that might have been, regardless.
You could be rolling down the shopping aisle at the grocery store, see a piece of lettuce, scan the barcode or whatever identification piece is next to the label, and then it'll show you, this was picked at a farm in Southern California 2 days ago.
Yeah, it totally could be like that.
And blockchain can enable that to happen.
Yeah, totally. That could absolutely be.
Interesting.
So those are some those are like what's the enterprise type things. These are ways that we're going to make the existing world that we live in more efficient and transparent, right? It doesn't matter if it's in energy, if it's in medicine, if it's in finance, if it's in law, whatever. In fact, LegalZoom just announced about 3 weeks ago they're about to get into smart contracts. So LegalZoom, right? Makes legal contracts easy for everyone. They're about to get into smart contracts. So they're going to make smart contracts as easy and accessible for the layman as possible, which will be very cool to see.
And what are smart contracts again?
It's just an automated contract between two people.
Okay.
And again,
just like an agreement?
Yeah, right, exactly. An if-then statement,
okay.
A digital if-then statement that both parties agree to. It just, again, it reduces the need for third parties. It reduces inefficiencies. It reduces corruptible individuals or corruptible nefarious parties involved.
So if you and I want to do business, I can pay you in crypto, but we also do a smart contract to guarantee that you pay me for my service.
Yeah, right. And it could be something like delivery, guarantee on delivery. And so instead of having to have some third party involved that verifies it and says, yep, that happened, we can have certain circumstances where it's like, if A, B, and C are all checked off, then yes, release the funds to him, and vice versa, or something along those lines.
Don't you think that Gates Barbecue, if when they do make, hey, we are now accepting Bitcoin, because that's most likely what they would accept. It'd be a major coin.
Yeah.
Will Bitcoin? Will the government ever have a hand in Bitcoin? Is it possible?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. And so this is some of the debates I get into with friends who, like, I've got a friend who works for the government, and he'll kind of repeat to me a lot of the talking points that you hear about whatever in the cable news about Bitcoin. No, I shouldn't say that, but he'll tell me some of the standard rebuttals I hear about that, especially regarding terrorist financing. So that's like one stage further about government involvement.
But there's always going to be corruption every single.
Well, but hold on though, because when you talk about Gates accepting Bitcoin, absolutely. But it would be
Gates
Gates Barbecue.
Okay, yeah.
It would not be in their best interest to accept Bitcoin and then also be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna cheat the government out of taxes," because it's not completely anonymous. Because the chain in blockchain is a chain link that shows every single transaction that's ever happened. So if I go to Gates today and I spend $10 of Bitcoin and it's locked onto the blockchain for the last 9 years of activity, anybody, especially the government who has endless amounts of tools for extremely smart people, can trace back all that. So it'd be very stupid for Gates as a company not to accept Bitcoin, totally cool,
right? But
to try to subvert the tax system or something.
So what that makes sense to me is, okay, if you get to a point where these mainstream local companies finally, these are old school companies that are making the jump into Bitcoin. But the only way to do that, the government is going to have some kind of governing body within the Bitcoin. But doesn't that completely contradict the whole purpose of the Bitcoin in the first place? Is that that it's decentralized?
Absolutely. And so that's where I think there's
almost like the Bitcoin has to what's the right word? They have to show some of their cards, or they have to give just a little bit in order for it to go mainstream.
Yeah, well, does it though? And like,
I don't know.
So like, here's a fun.
It sounds like it does.
Here's a fun thought experiment. Go back to what I mentioned. Let's just pretend, and doesn't it have to be an economic collapse? I'm just using that because I think that would be a strong primer to push everyone into it. Let's say an economic collapse happens. You've got a lot of 21 to 26-year-olds who have a huge amount of student loan debt, defaulting left and right. You've got older folks, you know, who are their Social Security. Inflation's, we're maybe not hyperinflation, but strong inflation. Their Social Security checks just aren't paying. So they start jumping into these Golem-like networks or these Steam-like networks or any of these other dozen or 24 networks I could go into that are allowing people to uncouple themselves from a menial desk job or some bullshit Amazon warehouse job that they don't want to do. They're getting paid in crypto. How does the IRS tax that? How does the IRS track that? How does the IRS confirm that if you have your web series and you're getting paid let's just say you're getting paid $1,000 a week, how can the IRS tax numbers and numbers? How can they prove?
They audit you and they say, hey, how'd you buy this new house?
Yeah,
with what money?
No,
And
absolutely.
you say, well, crypto. Well, you need to report that.
Yeah,
you gotta show how much crypto you.
Yeah, right. But how can they prove that was earned within the jurisdiction of the United States? Because it's a network. It's a cloud network.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like those zeros and ones were right here on this table, right in the state of Missouri. So it's an interesting argument. Now you could say, well, you were in Missouri, you earned it, that's why. Well, I suppose so. That's an argument, but I have a feeling that we will see some court cases that involve what is crypto, because right now at the federal level, the SEC, FinCEN, the IRS all look at crypto and define it differently. So how the hell is anybody supposed to do anything if one government agency says it's an asset, one government agency says it's a currency, and another says it's a security? Those are all different types of financial instruments. Those are all taxed differently. It's a very confusing space right now, and this is evolving so quickly that I don't know how they're going to keep up with it. So the taxing situation is a very interesting thought experiment to go into. Let's say you do own your small business and you accept crypto. I would suggest you just be honest about it for right now. But in the future, like I said, it's not going to be it's happening right now. Like I said, go to DTube. Look at the money people are earning on DTube. Or you go to Steemit, STEMIT. That's
Steemit?
Yeah, Steemit. That's their
.com?
Yeah, .com. That's their, I think it's .com. That's their mirror of Reddit. People on the front page of Steemit earning $300, $400, $500 US dollars worth of Steam tokens. Do you claim that as income? Is that earned income? Maybe. But how is it earned income? Because all these different agencies all define it differently. And again, like, okay, so I didn't pay my tax. What are you going to do? Throw me in jail and then confiscate my money?
The government makes the rules. They can do that.
They absolutely could.
They can audit you for any reason.
Right.
I just heard a story about a guy over college. This is years back. He made like 30, 40 grand painting houses, just college money, over a summer. Didn't report it. And I don't know how, I think there was an invoice or something, one of the clients reported that they were paying this kid to paint their houses, and it got around him. He gets audited. And he ends up owing even more money. So, I mean, I can see the government fighting this tooth and nail every single way until the only way that this is actually applicable is if they have a piece of the action.
What they're trying to do, and this is what's been happening in China the last few years. China's a very, very centrally planned economy. And you're starting to see it happen here in the United States, especially in the last year, especially with what happened with Coinbase, is that they're trying to regulate, because what they have found out, and they won't say it, but they've got, like I said earlier, they've got access to the brightest minds in whatever they want to get involved in, right? It's the government. They definitely have realized it's a losing battle. They're never going to be able to stop it. They're never going to be able to shut it off. They're never going to be able to regulate Bitcoin. They can, though, regulate the on-ramps and off-ramps to get Bitcoin. So if you go to Coinbase and buy some,
that's a good way to put it.
Yep, they can really turn the screws on people like Coinbase. And what you've actually seen over the last, say, 3 years, a lot of really big companies leaving the United States to go to Switzerland, going to Luxembourg. Malta is a hot spot right now. Is it a president of Malta? I'm not sure if they have a president, prime minister. I think it's a president. The leader of Malta this summer basically just stood up and said, "Hey, we're open for business. Get in here right now." So a lot of big names in crypto.
These are businesses that are that are developing crypto coins, or
yeah.
that are.
Yep. Now here's another little interesting side, is that because this is all based on algorithms, and the biggest thing right now is the exchanges, because it can be traced. People have built what are called decentralized exchanges. So now there's no centralized exchange to go subpoena to try to say, "Hey, give us all your client data." Now it is truly just you and I, and no middleman. Again, they're building these very successful algorithms. Like one is called 0x project or 0x protocol, and it's a decentralized exchange. It's very much like Coinbase or Fidelity, Charles Schwab. But let's say you're in trouble. Excuse me. The government goes to Charles Schwab and subpoenas them, or Coinbase and subpoenas them. You can't subpoena 0x. It's just an algorithm on the internet that just connects buyers and sellers. So this is happening so quickly. I don't know what's going to happen, because obviously the U.S. government or any government would want control. Now I'm not an anarchist. Hierarchies, we need hierarchies. They bring some order, law and order. It's a good thing, but I am very much against undue amounts of power and influence in these hierarchies. So what I see happening here in the coming years, and which is what I do at my work, are these different networks that are getting put out right now. And they're making some game-changing networks that when you watch how these are starting to develop, and you watch the traction and the active users month by month, you can say, "Oh my gosh, this is really starting to happen." And you're watching the entire crypto economy go like this, and you're watching the people on CNBC make fun of us silly idiots and blah, blah, blah. But that's not the case. That is not the case at all. And you're seeing some incredible things. And like just this morning, I've been working on this article now for a month and a half, but I've been extremely undisciplined about finishing it, because UBS, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, and Credit Suisse, and a few others. So like the others are private, not that I can't say who they are. It's just they were like, you had to pay for them. But I have friends who gave them to me, so I guess I could, but I'm not going to publish them. Basically, all these Wall Street firms are putting out these research reports about blockchain and crypto. And now a lot of people, it's just a human thing. If I get into the world of medicine and I want to be an expert and I have no idea, I'm going to lean very heavily on experts, right? Who can bring me along quickly. A lot of people are leaning on these Wall Street types to see, hey, like the private equity, the venture capital guys, the investment groups are leaning and waiting to see what's Wall Street going to say. Are they going to... Now you have like Jamie Dimon, who a year ago said, "I would fire anybody who had Bitcoin for being an idiot." Or you have Warren Buffett, who about a year ago said something like, "Bitcoin is rat poison." That kind of stuff. You read Morgan Stanley released another one on the 31st of October, so a few days ago. So they released that one, and I said, "All right, Ryan, just get the damn thing done. You've been screwing around. You have a really good rough draft. Just build it and publish it already." So I published this article where I just basically compiled 4 of these different Wall Street research reports on crypto and blockchain. And while they do have some valid concerns about how it will scale and custody and security, like those are very valid concerns, all of them say this is a game changer. And they're putting their name on it too. And these aren't just like a one-page white paper. The JP Morgan paper is 71 pages long. I think it was the Credit Suisse one was 100 pages long, 107 pages long. So like, and these are written by CFAs and analysts and equity manager, portfolio manager, like people who are supposed to be very well respected in the industry. And when you've got these Wall Street groups that are putting their name on this stuff, in my opinion, that's a very positive.
It's giving a validation.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this has been awesome. I learned a lot. I'm really glad we got to sit down and do this. If you want folks to get in touch with you, maybe they might be interested in sending you some money to manage. What's the best way for them to reach you?
You should find me on LinkedIn. I'm really active, post this kind of stuff on LinkedIn pretty regularly. So Ryan Derks, Derks. My YouTube, I try to do 2 or 3 a week, very much like this. Although mine are anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes because I'm just going over what's happening right now in the crypto industry. And you know, one of the coolest things about this is that it's materially changing every month. So there's no shortage of just like, oh my gosh, can you believe that happened? Like, for example, down in Venezuela, he calls himself a president. He's absolutely a dictator, but the president of Venezuela. That was the last one. This one is Maduro. And he's doubled down on Chavez's ideas of the social, collectivist ideas, which don't seem to be working for whatever reason. But he just released his own crypto token called the Petro, and it's directly tied to the oil that they produce and send out of Venezuela. He's trying to circumnavigate all global sanctions, and he can do it. He can. I mean, like, it's probably not going to work because, first off, it's a centralized token, so the government has the majority of tokens and can control it. And but it's very cool to see that a national leader is taking this on. I wouldn't put a single dollar. In fact, President Trump put out something a few weeks ago, maybe like 2 months ago, saying it's a federal crime if you put money into it. So don't do it. But yeah, so that's the kind of stuff I put on my YouTube channel. It's called This Is Derks on YouTube. But yeah, and we should do this more because like awesome. I said, here's what's going on is like, there's, like I said, that famous poster of an iceberg. Yeah. Like, what are we on here for, like an hour and a half?
Something like that.
Hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes? I don't know that we even barely like jumped below the iceberg.
We'll do this again.
Yeah, because like I said, this is all I do, and I'll be happy to come on if you want me to come on as often as you want me to. But there are so many more things for people to understand here, and it's not a fad. It's not Beanie Babies.
No, you're passionate about it.
This is going to change everything that anybody knows, no matter what industry you are, how old or young you are. It's gonna be a game changer. So yeah, I find this to be I'm extremely optimistic and excited about what's about to happen here. So.
Thank you for coming on. It's been
you
great.
bet, dude.
All right, man. Take
Happy
it easy.
To.
Yeah. Okay. That was good. Loved it.